Welcome to Founder Arc. I'm your host, Blaine Bertsch, co-founder and CEO at Dryrun Cash Flow Forecasting Software, where we help the office of the CFO leave spreadsheets behind and model everything from cash flow through to complex scenarios with clarity and control. And joining me today is Dr. Angela Zeng of Karviva, a functional beverage brand that's rooted in her family's traditional Chinese medicine. Welcome to the show, Angela.
So nice to be here, and such an honor to be a guest of yours. Yes, look forward to our discussion.
Thank you so much for being on the show. So I would love to hear a little bit about, your journey to being an entrepreneur. Let's go back to where it started. Where was the first time you kind of went, oh, this is kind of interesting. I think I want to jump out and do this on my own.
Yeah. So I have actually pretty, I would say, unconventional path compared to a lot of entrepreneurs, foodies in the food and bev business. First, I'm much older than most of the entrepreneurs in my industry. Second is I didn't come from a power, like marketing background, sales background. I think lots of our fellows in my industry come from, either they were doing some marketing or sales with another large food and bev company, or it can be just consumers who love the product they're making in their kitchen and they want to take it to the market, which is awesome. I love that. Every product has an interesting story behind. For me, I came from heavily medical research background. So first of all, I was born and raised in a family with deep roots in traditional Chinese medicine. So it's almost in my blood, this holistic healing, the ancient wisdom of how to utilize natural resources, mainly, natural food, herbs, even our connection with other creatures, especially with Mother Nature, how to use that relationship to heal ourselves, to promote health, to prevent getting sick. So since I was little, I was just fascinated with that. I'm still fascinated with what Mother Nature has to offer to us. I'm still learning. I'm still, try to make the most out of that knowledge I inherit from not just my family, but just from all the wise people in the history, in my culture and outside my culture. So for me, that's a strong passion. And then on top of that, I came to this country, US, about 30 years ago to pursue my PhD in pathology. So since then, I spent many years in medical research. I had my own research grant from American Heart Association. I went to Northwestern for a postdoc fellowship. Again, I don't want to let that scare anyone who is thinking about starting his or her own bev or food business. Like I said, I'm an outlier, right? So I focus more on the product, making the right product to serve the customers I'm serving. Over the years, I have learned so much on sales, marketing, all those necessary things we have to have as entrepreneur, because entrepreneur basically means we have to wear every single hat you can imagine. Blaine, I'm sure you're doing the same thing.
Every day.
The only thing I hate to do is wash the toilet, right? I don't do that for myself. That's not good for anyone. But it's like constantly, this kind of hands-on approach is necessary for small business. But in the old days, up to a certain kind of sales revenue, you start to have to hire and bring the right talent, or you have to outsource. I did a lot of outsourcing, in the old days, for example, social media, PR, all those things. I have to say, one benefit we're getting now these days as entrepreneur is AI. Now with AI, especially the fast development of AI agents, I feel like I could bring a lot of things back in-house without necessarily adding a head count. Because what I learned as an entrepreneur, one thing I'm sure you would agree, and many people here would agree, is it is so hard to find the right talent, affordable right talent that you can be a trustworthy, whatever, partner. This partnership is the most important thing, critical
Hmm.
to ensure you have a successful business. However, most good talents, they demand more, they deserve more. So you
Yeah.
cannot underpay them. And it is hard just to attract talents with equity, what I learned, because
Yeah.
nobody is sure about the future of your business. The equity you
Yeah.
offer means nothing to them. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
No,
what I learned.
it's absolutely true. And okay, first of all, I want to go back a little bit here because it's interesting. You've mentioned a couple of times that, sort of a very unconventional path to becoming an entrepreneur. Um, I think even just this show, we're on episode 86, I think. And I've talked, I talk with entrepreneurs. I have most of my friends are entrepreneurs. So we're talking with them all the time. And what's interesting is I think all of us think we took an unconventional path because the paths are so different. It's so
Yes.
like it's just what it is. So yeah, maybe in your industry, you see a few more and a little bit of a trend, but I will say that the paths to entrepreneurship take so many different walks, even me with Dryrun, with what I'm doing now. I started this around 40. So I had a business before. I had a small business before, but this one, which is the big high risk, the big play that it really, really hard. I think around 40 when I started it. So it just was a different path, right? So I wasn't in my 20s when I did it, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it is kind of interesting that it's just but I think the universal thing is that entrepreneurs seem to spot opportunity. Like that's just the one thing that seems to be in us is like opportunity and the desire to build something. And I want to circle a little bit back into um the roots of sort of where you came up with this idea and sort of why you started to build it, because what you are starting to talk about with holistic healing and preventative medicine, I think, and I'm guessing this is all sort of rooted in that. I don't know if I really had that even in my mind 10, 15 years ago, barely. But I will tell you today, I'm on YouTube all the time. I'm planning like our probiotics and our this and our fiber intake and like we are not obsessed with it, but it's just sort of our daily life is it's changed so much on preventative and that. So I think the timing for you was amazing, but I think it feels to me, and I don't know if you feel this, but it feels to me like North America is finally waking up to it's not just solve things with a pill.
So well said, Blade. And I'm so glad you said that. Two thumbs up. I have to say you're doing the right thing, because longevity is not about counting on medical pills or procedures to prolong your lifespan. It's about how to prevent all the disease you don't want to have and
Yeah.
also live a quality life, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
stay the rest of 10 or 20 years in a nursing home and just feel like you're a zombie sitting there, right? It is truly
Yeah.
sad. In the old days when I had to visit those places, I feel like my heart was just crunching. I mean, it is,
Yeah.
you saw the human beings pretty much at that stage had no dignity in a certain way,
Yeah.
and I hate, I mean, I have to say, in that stage, you would rather to be dead instead of just still have a life there, right?
Yeah.
So, and and I'm so glad you mentioned about this evolution. 10 or 20 years ago, I mean, that was, I have to say, when I first moved to this country, that was in the 90s. When I asked the first thing I did with my college was I had to go to do a physical checkup, just a routine as a new student,
Mm.
reporting to the school. And when I asked the PA and I asked her, do you guys prescribe our old drugs? Or she said, "Oh, we don't do that because there's no clinical evidence studies to support that." And I got that. I mean, over the years, but I do see people start to realize, gosh, it's the food we're eating, it's the lifestyle we're living has more to do with our health instead of, oh, if I feel a headache, I just take a Tylenol, or if I have a back
Yeah.
pain, I just on this pain pill forever. I'm so glad for that, because in the old days, right? If you talk to your grandparents, I'm sure they will tell you using the natural resource to feel better. It's the routine. Just like in the old days, there was no such food with this organic label, non-GMO label. Now, as food makers, we had to pay extra, going extra step to get those certificates. I understand. I respect all those organizations because they are doing something to protect consumers' interests. However, it is so sad, ironic we had to do this because everything's supposed to be organic and non-GMO, right?
It should be.
And now
It
we have
should
to
be.
carve out and charge a huge premium because all those process certificates audits cost tons of money. So unfortunately, the food provider had to transfer that cost to consumers. Is that necessary? I feel like it shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be this way.
It should be the other way around.
Exactly. I hope one day we can change that. I just feel like, unfortunately, back in the 60s, after the big, the World War II, all the government, especially U.S. government, was the leader to start this massive industry agriculture business. And because of that, we start to massively use fertilizer, pesticides. I mean, if you ever read about the sad story about underground water in Iowa State, why it costs why people living there has much higher incident rates of cancer, and then even, for new mom to be stillbirths, birth defect. It's crazy. It's all because this over decades of heavy use of all those chemicals. And it just goes into the deep groundwater, into the soil, and we cannot avoid them anymore, sadly. Even as someone like you try to do all the right thing to protect your own health, we're surrounded by the chemicals. So I have to say, for me, you can see it is my passion. And many times I feel like it is I cannot say it's calling, obligation, that I need to find ways to educate consumers to understand this healing wisdom that our ancestors, gave us. That, however, the mainstream pharmaceutical, of course, or insurance or healthcare don't want you to think about them anymore. And for a reason, if everyone can heal themselves, then there's no more business for many industry.
Well, and that's the scary part is a lot of the it's just an engine. It's a big giant engine.
Oh yeah.
And it's not necessarily good for people. And I agree with you. And it's the first time when you mentioned this, I kind of thought about it. It's like, why is it that healthy, organic, unprocessed food should be that should be the default, and you should have to pay all sorts of fees to be able to sell things that aren't healthy for people. That's who should be spending the money. Like I don't even think this was a product labeled, organic or anything, but I was in the grocery store the other day and this just popped into my head because I went to get a jar of just blueberry jam and, and one of them said, no added sugar. That's all it said was no added sugar. And it was like $2 or $3 more than the other one that had sugar in it. And I'm like, you have to pay that much more money for them to just not put an ingredient in. Like it was so odd because it wasn't even making claims of being organic or anything. Like,
oh my God,
it costs that much more just not to put sugar in. It drives me nuts.
It is. Would you feel like you wish there's a reset button? We can push it. And then I just feel like if we can do that, like you said, it's supposed to be the other way around. People who are industry, who are selling the players who are selling those ultra processed food, not so healthy, we know they cause damage to everyone's health. They're supposed to pay a premium. But ends up, they're the one who enjoy the massive market share because, they put all their money, resource into ads. Brainwash consumers, brainwash us that this is cheap, this is tasty, this is convenient. right? And they put a few chemicals there to say, hey, also good for your health because look, we have vitamin D there, we have vitamin B
Mm.
there, right? Some chemicals there.
Yeah.
We all know it's a gimmick, but on the other side, when it comes down to an average consumer, then they would blame the consumer. You got sick because you choose the wrong lifestyle. You are eating bad. You are sitting there all day long. You are not moving your butt. But I'm like, you make all those healthy actions or the lifestyle so hard, so
Yeah.
expensive for average consumer to afford, especially
Yeah.
now these days under the current economy situation. I mean,
It's
it's
hard.
also like I heard these things, and some people are very proud of that, but I feel like I have resentment against that. Sorry, today I feel like I was
Yeah.
keep using the word sad but it's like, oh, the type of food you're eating, the type of lifestyle you're choosing, it's a status of yourself. I'm like, oh, that means only the elites can live this can afford this kind of
Yeah.
food. They can live this kind of
Yeah.
lifestyle. It's supposed not to be that way.
No, organic should be less expensive than and it is. It's so expensive now that it's really hard for people to eat healthy
Yeah.
like it's again like 10 years ago we weren't growing some of our own food, but now we grow a lot of our own herbs and that kind of stuff. Um, I'm making things that I never used to. I'm making like fermented pickles, fermented
Wow. Amazing.
sauerkraut. I occasionally will even attempt kimchi. Um, but it's because I know what's going in it for one thing, but also I can make it for like a tenth the price because
Yeah.
it's so expensive to go get a fresh, organic, not shelf stable, like to get something that actually has probiotics in. It's hard to find and expensive. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to make some of this myself. But it's actually been kind of fun to make it too. So
Yeah,
it is
it is.
a benefit
It's
there.
very therapeutic, right? That process
Yeah.
is almost like making a piece of art or whatever, the
Yeah.
craft work you enjoy doing. Making your own food is actually even more therapeutic, both for your for your heart and for your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's so well said. So for me, I feel like any entrepreneur, like you mentioned, they started their path for it can be for all kinds of different reasons. I think one thing made us common, like you mentioned, is we see there's a problem and we love to come up with a solution. And we're not
Yeah.
just saying that. We like to take the risk and then do my own hard work
Yeah.
24/7 and then work on it. That's one thing make entrepreneurship so beautiful, but also very
Mhm.
challenging at the same
Yeah.
time.
I found, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like me. I was so obsessed with what I see as an opportunity and a problem that we can solve. And I think, like we have a solution that I think is really going to work for this. And for me, it's like I didn't recognize how risky it actually was till I'm so far down the path that you're like, holy cow, this is a lot harder than I thought. And that's where it seems like just the tale of the entrepreneur. It gets a lot harder down the path, but but then on the other side, it's like almost almost all the entrepreneurs talk with they wouldn't do anything else because they still are passionate about building and creating and solving some sort of problem. Um, so I'm assuming then so I want to talk a little bit about when you were growing up because this, like I said, it was rooted in your family's traditional medicine and just the way you grew up must have sort of sunk in and led to this. And it just feels like quite a different upbringing than I think a lot of us had in North America, where my mom would make fresh foods and but we were always excited about when we would get the processed stuff here and there, the little treats, right? And you kind of learn that. I'm just sort of, but we never talked about it being fresh food. It was just food, right? I'm curious about how you sort of absorbed this and got an interest and belief in this growing up, and then what you felt when you got to North America and it seemed really different. It's because I think that's where you started to see that opportunity. I just want to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah. Great question. I have to say, yeah. So for me, it's like my grandpa was he was like a healer. Well, was in Indonesia. So my dad was from Indonesia, but our ancestors are all Chinese. He operate like herbal shops, and he also did his own like remedies and helping his community, just those folks to get well, to feel better whenever they were sick. And
Hmm.
then I have in my family, then I would say my parents' generation, then they start to have like my one of my aunts was like a researcher in women's health, but study
Hmm.
herbal products impact on women's health. And then one of my uncle was a expert researcher, a professor, study why acupuncture works from a neuroscience perspective. So it's already putting not just, understanding the ancient healing wisdom, but also use the modern science to try to understand that,
Hmm.
the why behind. So for me, I was just embedded in this kind of environment. It was just fascinating. Not only I kind of use herbs since I was little, it's just tradition, of course,
Yeah.
but I also had opportunity to visit like different research labs, my aunt, my uncles, and just to understand, why this ancient wisdom truly work. Is not just voodoo science. There's
Hmm.
actually real science. There are real reason behind it. We can pinpoint to molecules or the neuron paths or different pathway, signal pathway in our body, certain kind of compound in herbs kind of interact with, or when you do acupuncture, what exactly does it do to you?
Hmm.
We call it like different channels inside your body.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, that's just it's a passion, I have to say. It's a
Yeah.
hobby. It started almost like you can call it a hobby, but it just became a passion. And then I came to
Yeah.
this country to pursue further in cell biology, basically medical research paths. and but in old days, even when I was doing research experiments, sometimes I would put a few drops of my herbal stuff into the petri dishes just out of curiosity. That wasn't my research topic, but I was just like,
Yeah.
I just want to see what happened, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so it's just in my blood, I have to say.
Yeah.
I think as entrepreneur, because like you said, because of the high risk we're taking, the thing is, the risk is not just on ourselves, because we all have family. Sometimes we feel
Yeah.
like we unconsciously also put this risk to our family. And is
Hmm.
that so you feel like, oh gosh, am I doing the right thing? Not just for myself, but also for my family.
Yeah.
On the other side, it's constant challenge. Almost like the more you do, the more successful you become, the more challenge you will have, which is,
Yeah.
I guess, is both good and bad. However, just all those things are huge challenges to our manpower. Kind of, it's like
Yeah.
sometimes you just think, I would rather just quit. If I work for a large company, I don't have to deal with all this headache, right?
Yeah.
But what keeps us going is that strong belief.
Yeah.
We have to have a
The
strong belief.
yeah.
And because of that, it's that's almost like our North Star in terms of why we started the business.
Yeah.
And that's the driving force to keep entrepreneurs pursue their dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so I want to now I want to fast forward right to can you remember sort of the moment when you thought, uh, I'm gonna do something about this. I'm gonna start a company. Where was that leap? Was it a bit of a slow kind of you worked into it, or was it just one day I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this?
That's such a good question. I would say it's both. So over the years, I always had friends asking me, oh, Angela, why don't you start sell your remedy? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I was working in pharmaceutical, and medical research and pharmaceutical business development. I was like, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with my job. My kids are still young. Well, I think one day I feel like my kids back then were still young. They're in elementary schools, but I was just like, well, I'm already in my 40s. If I don't do this one day, I know I won't do it when I'm in my 50s. I'll be
Yeah.
just like, I'm too old to do anything like this. So I thought about maybe I should give it a try. And I started to work on just the first formulation, right? Because herbal remedy is very different than a beverage.
Yeah.
So I spent over a year just to fine tune, kind of tweak their formulation so it's consumable, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you can put it on shelf and sell it as a drink instead of, it's almost like herbal remedy. I don't know. It tastes like a medicine. I don't want to drink it, right?
Yeah.
So that process, I will say, once I went through that process, it becomes like I got to do it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I wasn't sure, and then just the encouragement from my friends and also from my husband. I have to say, I was really fortunate. My husband said, "Yeah, just give it a try. If you really want to try, give it a try." And I feel like I just had that encouragement from my community, and then that really helped me.
Yeah. So what was the first product? Like, what was the first thing that because what I'm curious, I always ask entrepreneurs is if you remember your very first sale and what that product was. And do you remember like someone bought it, right?
Yeah. The first product, it was the detox juice. It is still our legacy product. It's a top seller. We still receive amazing feedback from our customers, how
Yeah.
wonderful this is, helping in terms of helping their health issues. The main ingredient is really simple: is mung bean sprouts, a roti berry. So, I mean, I love mung beans. Well, mung beans is pretty stable. I would say it's a food. It's a food we consume in East Asia countries. In China, Korea, Japan, Thailand, many other places, and but the beauty about mung beans is it was traditionally used we call it cooling down the heat inside your body. So the heat in the traditional Chinese medicine basically is this inflammation. It's the chronic, it can be chronic inflammation. So chronic inflammation. So many people have arthritis, pain issue. It is basically a chronic inflammation. Many people have digestive issue. That's actually a sign you have chronic inflammation in your digestive tract. It can be due to the food you're eating, can be drinking too much alcohol. It can be simply because you're under too much stress, chronic stress for too long. So the mung bean are used to alleviate that. And then the medical research there, like bunch of clinical study to show the compounds inside actually chelates the toxins. For example, heavy metal, and help our body eliminate those toxins. Of course, all those toxins we're exposed daily cause chronic inflammation, and some of them cause acute inflammation. That's like you eat something wrong, you can have, like now we have a disease, a pesticide circulating around the country. The FDA still try to identify the food source cause that, but there's already many reported case, horrible, diarrhea and all those vomiting.
Yeah.
That's your body. It's like, oh gosh, something really bad. We try to get
Trying
rid
to
of,
get it
fight
out.
that over. But the most dangerous thing is actually the chronic inflammation, because we don't realize it. Or chronic inflammation over time not just only cause pain, it cause heart disease, cause dementia, Alzheimer, it cause cancer. So gentle daily detox is actually so important in TCM. We use not just mung beans, we use other things to do this regularly. It's not about, doing detox once a year or once a month. We know it's important to do this daily, because even in the old days, our body are exposed to natural toxins constantly. And it is hard for our body to naturally clean them out and maintain this natural balance. So that's why I choose to work with that. But however, both mung bean sprouts and roti berry is another amazing food ingredient. It's used in many countries, including here in North America, by native Indians to use as a medicinal food. They use it to treat disease. It can treat almost like a wonder drug. It can treat anything you can imagine. But it is sadly not being picked up by the industry like blueberry, because people feel like it's just like a wheeze. It doesn't taste good. The industry never put in the efforts to try to cultivate it, to make it tasty. Like now the blueberry, the wild blueberry, it's just like a berry. They are very sour, very tiny. Birds love it, but it's hard for human to consume. Through generations of genetic modification, they make the blueberry now really chubby and sweet, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a different story, but a berry still does many wonderful things. So for me, to put two ingredients has amazing health benefits, but they don't taste good on themselves was my challenge. So that's why it took me a year to overcome that. It's like try to blend it with other healthy, low sugar fruits. For example, kiwi. And I use the dark Concord grapes because it has abundant natural antioxidant and also gives a nice flavor. And I use monk fruit to enhance the sweetness because, gosh, especially when I first started, people just love sweet drinks.
Yep.
As you can imagine, it's getting better now. I have to say, it's getting better now. So I use monk fruit. We are one of the first few started to use monk fruit, but now you see that very frequently in different drinks or even food. Yeah, that's how I started. I have to say, it's almost like I pick a really hard problem to solve, and it took me a long time to solve that. And I use my friends as the guinea pig. I just constantly take the prototype to them. Hey, can you try this? And the first few formulation was like, oh no, Jack, Angela, you got to put maybe sugar, lots of sugar, maybe some salt. Maybe you should do that. Maybe you should do this. It's all good. I'm sure all of us would consult our friends and family for, hey, what do you think? What do you think about my product? What do you think about my service? And you got all kinds of inputs. Take it with grain and salt. I always, you learn from everyone else, but you are the one who have to be very clear. What's the final goal you try to achieve here?
Yeah. It's hard because you get so much information. It's like drinking from a fire hose. There's so much information coming in.
Yeah.
And some of that is such good information that it could absolutely lead you to success. And then some of it is such bad information it could lead you to doom. And then a lot of it is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah,
and
noise.
You sometimes you get a bit of you use your gut and you get a bit of a sense of which one to pick. But it's really in the rear view mirror when you can go, that was really good advice I missed, and that was really bad advice I took. And you don't know till later, right? It's just how it is. It's
oh my
so
gosh,
hard.
yeah. We could maybe entrepreneurs should have like a pile of like almost like write down what's the best advice you wish you took but you didn't, and what was the advice you took and really I wish I really didn't do that.
Exactly. And the hardest part is this: sometimes the stuff that's worse for me is best for the entrepreneur down the street.
Yes.
And that's the big challenge, right?
Yeah.
So you formulate this thing. It takes a year. It's like, okay, I've got this product now. What was that first step to actually go? Because this is where it's kind of like, okay, now I got to get a sale. Like that's ultimately the sometimes the biggest and hardest step is to figure out, to get even that first sale. Where did you get that first sale?
I have to say back then, because I was so focused on this mission, this vision, and then my product, right? I wasn't even thinking about how hard it is to get the sale because I didn't come from consumer product, selling consumer product business. That was in pharmaceutical, which is very different. Yeah. So what I did was really simple. I just went to my local Whole Foods store where I do my shopping, and I just like, hey, I got this really cool product. Why don't you take a look? And then I didn't even know it would be so hard. I just keep asking. They say, oh, yeah, the manager's not here. Sorry, you have to come back another day. And then I went back. Just keep. Then finally, I guess they got fed up with me. They say, okay,
Nice.
just talk to him. And then he said, oh, this is a really cool product. We've never seen this before. Maybe we can give you a try just in my store. I said, sure. I was like, yeah, I just want to see. Because for me, it's like, I got a product. I'm super curious how, not just my friends now, right? How just strangers would think about it. And then we launched 5 different SKUs. And back then, I didn't even understand ideal shelf location. I had no clue. I should have learned something about it. Again, I mean, it's just like, and then the first day when they launched it, I was like a little bit nerve-wracking. I was like, I don't know if anyone is going to buy my product. Back then, it was in a glass bottle. Looks like a salad dressing. Seriously, it was not so pretty. And guess what? We got 3 SKUs out of 5 sold out on the first day. I was like,
wow,
maybe
that's
it's
terrific.
cool. I should continue to do that, because I was like, if nobody want to buy, probably should not make them, right? Then I just really got encouraged, and then we just started to grow from there. I have to say, because that, I would say, ironically, I didn't know how hard it is to sell consumer product. If I knew all those, probably I would be like, I can't do this. I can't do that. I was just like, I'm just going to do it. Right. And then I did so many in-store demos. I would say the most important thing for entrepreneurs is to understand your customer so well. It's almost like, ideally, you want to understand their pain, and their whatever their habits, their lifestyle, better than they understand themselves. If you can achieve that, I'm sure you're going to have a very successful business. If you're so obsessed with understanding your customers and how to serve them better, I think that's the key. And that's what I did. I didn't realize that was what I was doing. I was just doing lots of in-store demos, sampling. For me, it was like just to collect customers' feedback, because I love to come up with new product. I like to tweak my formulation. So for me, I want to learn from them. Their feedback for me is what I can use to come up with new product. But it also helps to sell product in store, right?
Yeah.
And then I realized this is actually the best way, because online survey, and now lots of people use AI to do this kind of run the simulation of market research. However, the best way is still the old-fashioned way. Talk to your customers face to face. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I absolutely. I think the biggest steps forward we've made in our company is just because we started to get we always thought we were talking with our customer, but there was at some point it transitioned where we became obsessed with talking with our customer, and everybody wanted to hear what they said. And because early on, it's like you're kind of like, oh, well, maybe they don't understand, or they, we've got this vision sort of thing in it. But at some point, it transitioned to, I want to hear everything, and you learn, and that was the biggest thing. And I totally agree with you. There is nothing that can replace a conversation with the customer, because a lot of times what they say isn't what they mean. Like AI can go through everything and say, well, this is all the data. It's like, yeah, but you know what? It's the subtext, and that subtext comes out when you actually are talking with them, and you find out, you start asking the right questions, and you start getting to the root of it, because the surface stuff, it's a lot of times they're not even conscious of why they want something or what the true problem is.
Exactly.
So you're talking with them. And so, I think the couple of things that stood out for me is, we all seem to come from like no idea what we're doing. Even people that are experts in marketing, it's like, yeah, but they don't know anything else. Like they got to learn everything else. Right. But it's persistence. Number one is persistence. And then it's just an obsession with your customer. And the other thing that I think was really kind of, even though we're in software, I remember hearing an expert one day say, if you're not embarrassed by your product when you launch it, you waited too late to launch. And I look back at our very first product, I'm like, it's like our very first prototype, and it barely did anything, and it was clunky, and it was, I think it was actually not that attractive. And but we got some sales, and we're like,
That's amazing.
Okay, right? That we have something here. And then it gets into the long grind. So with that, well, first of all, that's amazing that you sold out 3 of those SKUs in the first day. So now as you're starting to talk with people and you're getting all of this input, how do you go, okay, how do you take that next step to go from, okay, I'm in this store, it seems to be selling good, what's that next step?
Yeah, that was basically try to pursue other store in my region. In first just local,
Mhm.
the same city. And then I started once you start to make a little bit splash in your local markets, then their experts start approaching you, right? Like say, oh, we
Yeah.
can help you to expand. And I did that.
Yeah.
Looking back, I feel like I still put a big question mark if that was necessary. Of course, I learned so much from those experts. But on the
Mhm.
other side, I feel like that wasn't necessary the step or the approach for foodies, beverage entrepreneur to take. I
Yeah.
think looking back, I probably should have spent more time, more resource, grow my local traction well, build your base super, super strong before you expand to other parts of the country. And I feel
Yeah.
like the first 3 years, I kind of expand a little bit too wide and too quickly.
Mhm.
And what end up is I had to contract because I realized
Yeah.
there's some region basically is just money pit. I could
Uh-huh.
never. It's basically you're just burning money there. You don't make much gain, but you just basically for the sake of adding another few dozens or 20 or 50 store count, uh, for no reason. It doesn't help you in the long run.
Yeah.
And I think just over this process, I just have to constantly fine tune our product, not just the product, but also the marketing message. I
Mhm.
think experts said it so well. It's about a product and promise. Product is the same, physical product is the same that you deliver to consumer, they're using, they're enjoying.
Mhm.
Promise is the marketing message. Like, I can't say, hey, drink this detox, you'll be disease free. I'm making
Yeah.
a fake promise then,
Yeah.
right? And of course, that's going to get me into trouble with
Yeah.
FTC, all those. But on the other side, we see that a lot in the functional food and beverage. People exaggerate the
Yeah.
function, the benefits of their product. So basically, you have to be careful making a promise that your product can deliver.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something. It's a fine balance. Of course, you want your marketing message to be eye catching, to be sexy, that people will jump onto it, the deal and buy it. But on the other side, when they hear all those fantastic promise and they end up to be disappointed, you totally burn that bridge. I
Yeah.
think that's a fine balance. But on the other side, you cannot just be sending out a boring message. Yeah, it's low sugar. It is healthy, better for you. Or they will think, oh, it's just another so-called healthy better for me
Yeah.
juice. I don't know. I've heard that 10 times already. And I
Yeah.
got burned 9 times already. I'm not going to trust you, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I think it's a fine balance. That's something I'm still learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
would say the rest is just about, like you said, choosing learning how to take the good advice, which is so hard because
Yeah.
we've been bombarded with different advice from everyone,
Yeah.
advice from
Yeah.
experts with a good heart. However, they're not you. They don't understand your business.
Yeah.
They give you the advice very generic that may be good for some really large corporation, but totally can kill you.
Yeah, yeah. I made a rule for myself a number of years ago that the only advice I consider now is with someone that's been there and has actually done it. Not even have to be successful, but they've been there and they've done it. They didn't just read about it. Because what we find a lot is there's a lot of so-called experts that
Oh my
they've read
gosh.
about it, they've been to conferences, and it all sounds easy. And when I sit down with another entrepreneur and you're talking about entrepreneur issues or problems, they have to have be in the trenches with me, or they have to have done it. Even if I'm talking with somebody that's maybe, let's say, a marketing expert or something, same thing. They don't have to have been an entrepreneur, but they have to have done it, not just went to school for it, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to draw a line at some point. It's not like some of that advice probably would be okay, but what I found over the years is more often than not, that's the stuff that sounded really simple and it never really worked out. And other entrepreneurs, in fact, I had a call with one a couple days ago, and it's different because they're like, I don't know if this is good, advice or not, but this is kind of what worked for us. I'm like, oh my god, like it's amazing advice, but they don't really believe it. And then a lot of the experts they're so confident. It's like AI. It's so confident
Oh my
in
gosh,
in
yes,
being
AI.
wrong, So you got to be so careful with what you follow and what you pick out of all this stuff everywhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was curious. So there's I'm thinking about even like some of my businesses and that, and it's there was a sort of a transition a little bit where it felt like I went from being on the front line and working sort of in the business to sort of working on the business. And I kind of wanted to see like where you felt like there was a change from you're actually formulating the drinks and you're right hands on and you're doing like, even now I know entrepreneurs have a lot of hats, but where it got to the point where it's like, okay, now I can actually start to get some help. I can maybe have a few people or a lot of people working with me. um, I can start to delegate a little bit and I can start to have a bit of a vision of how do we how do we build the business rather than how do we make the product. And I'm curious uh, where you felt that sort of happened to you and like where you kind of got that impression that it's our feel that that's my role now is to build the business.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say I'm still in that stage to finding a balance
Yeah.
because I'm much less hands-on compared to even a year ago. However, in some areas like e-commerce, I'm still very hands-on because that's
Yeah.
newer for us, and also is the fattest. I mean, the rapid growth in e-commerce for our business right now, I cannot afford just to completely outsource that to someone
Yeah.
else. So because of that, I'm still learning. I'm listening to lots of webinars, podcasts, or whatsoever to learn about how things get done in the old days and now these days in the e-commerce business.
Hmm.
On the other side, in terms of manufacturing or retail channel management, I kind of also, I would say, relied on my staff, just have 100% trust on my staff. And then also rely on my partners I built over the years, good partnership in terms of retail sales. And I
Hmm.
pretty much very hands off there. I would say it is true. We have very limited time and
Yeah.
we can spend and also entrepreneurship is also about constant learning, right? We cannot
Yeah.
just only do things without learning. It's not going to work for us, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me it's still a challenge I'm facing because what to focus on, and then I try to force myself few times, at least a month, to try to step out and then think about the long run, right? I mean, are we heading
Yeah.
to the right direction? What I'm doing, is that right or not? What's the next step, for example, for next year? That you just have to have a habit, force yourself to do that from time to time, because otherwise we just get caught on the daily nitty gritty operation.
Yeah.
Impossible to think
Yeah.
about this big picture. Yeah.
Yeah. But like I find that that day to day, trust the process, focus on what you need to do to get this next step. Ultimately, that's probably the biggest thing towards success. The big picture things oftentimes aren't the big movers that actually get to success. It's the grind to see every day.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
and I totally agree with you. Like I feel like it's you're learning every day, and I need to be able to learn things um to be able to understand like what we need to do, like or what the team needs to do, what who we might need to hire, what I need to do. Like so, yeah. There's this push and pull with entrepreneurs where you're very hands on and you have to be right down in the nitty gritty trenches all the time. And then there's times where you can go, okay, I understand it. Now somebody can take this on and go with it because I'm confident that I need to understand it. I can't just blindly trust. Like all these parts have to fit together and work together. Um, it's such a challenge, I think, for entrepreneurs to be able to. Uh, I find for myself to really know like where do I step back? When do I look big picture? When do I go super granular? When am I doing
Yeah.
and when do I trust the team like to just go okay, they've got this. And it's easier just tap dancing and wearing, like you said, multiple hats all
Yes.
of the time. It's such
Yeah.
a challenge.
Absolutely.
So
That's
what,
why we need
yeah,
podcasts like yours to learn. Is hearing what
uh,
other people they have done, what
yeah,
they wish they have, they implement more, or what was the lesson they learned? Yeah.
Yeah, I every time I record a podcast, actually, usually I forget I'm recording at some point because I'm having just a conversation and learning from it.
I
Oh,
know.
that's
I
a,
know.
and it's such a, yeah, it's such a, I just love that. I love talking with other entrepreneurs, and it's fulfilling, and it's calming in a way. And it also, you just learn, and it's sometimes it's the biggest lessons I learned from other entrepreneurs. So let's kind of fast forward to today now. So what do you think are sort of your next steps? Like what do you kind of focused on now that is like, okay, that's that next big challenge we want to
Yeah.
tackle.
I would say right now I'm more focused on the e-commerce channels, build up our e-commerce channels, and then we're going to have new product that we're going to push out soon, and then build upon that is more we're going to venture into the supplement field, which is more in
Okay.
line with the TCM kind of foundation. Yeah, I have some ambitions there, but again, I want to master this, how to do things right in the e-commerce first. I would say the retail channel is basically, I'm basically like a routine working with my partner. I'm really happy with my partner,
Hmm.
on that part of the business. Um, I would say that's my focus right now because again, it's more in line with the philosophy, the foundation of Karviva. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's such an interesting thing because I've heard that from other, like, of course I'm not in consumer products, but I've heard that from other entrepreneurs that it is such a balance today of online and bricks and mortar, and it's
Yeah.
how do you balance that out, and where does it, how does it all work? And I imagine with the e-commerce side, it's something that at least it's like you're not relying on someone else. You have more sort of control to get directly to that
Oh, yeah.
market. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And
yeah.
also you have better way to collect consumer data.
Oh, yeah, that's also another
Mhm.
great. Yeah, you get all the data. It's not blocked or vetted or whatever. So, very interesting. So so Angela, if people want to learn about like basically they want to try your product or they want to try your detox, how do they find you? Where should they get in touch with you, and how do they find you guys?
Yeah, they should go to our website, which is karviva.com. That's Karviva, karviva.com. And you can find the amazing product and also the story behind. We were fortunate enough, there were a few local channels made documentary about us. Just a very interesting story.
Nice. Yeah.
And if you have 10 minutes, you can just watch it and probably you will learn a few things about Karviva.
Yeah, well, that's terrific, Angela. Actually, I'm looking for. I'm gonna have to try your product here, the detox. I really do want to try that one, so I'm gonna have to track that down. Thanks again so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it. It was a wonderful conversation. I know we could probably talk for hours here, but we I gotta let you get back to work.
Sorry.
Um, yeah, no, I appreciate it. This was such a fun time. I really enjoyed it.
Great.
And also, if you're out there, if you are a business owner, or especially if you're like a CFO, finance person, and you're in spreadsheets dealing with cash flow, trying to figure out day to day, where are we? How do we move forward? Come and talk with us at Dryrun.com. We'll help you out.